Okay, so it was about last Friday-ish. I got my, if I can pull it up, Pinetime. Um, so for those that don't know, it's basically a cheapo smartwatch, kind of in the same line as the Pebbles, except it doesn't use an e-ink display. Focus camera, come on, shaky. But basically it's like $25, $11 shipping. So basically it's $36 in essence. But I've been using it for almost the last week, like here and there. And so you can see, like, straight up, I've been using it decently well. There were some quirks that I ran into with it, but I'll kind of talk about those in a bit. So, some of the first things. So, if I go and look at the firmware, you can see that I'm basically, it'll, come on, oh gosh, me. Yeah, you can see I'm on 1.3.0, and so that's the latest I know so far. I mean, if I double check and there's been an update today for it, then that was just barely today, so yeah, you can have fun with that. Um, it does give you a lot of information. It's a very basic one. So you have like the step counter goal that you can set. So if you were paying attention on the clock face, I was basically way past the goal. So you can just up it and it ups it by thousands of steps. So you can set your goal and have it go there. That does serve a purpose. So the watch face, so we will look at the analog. So the first one was the digital. And so the analog looks about like that. It'll focus. So you've got that for your analog. Um, One thing I think we should check real quick is this will make it easier for in the next 2 seconds while I play with it. So this is like the one thing that really on your wrist is necessary. So it's got a heart rate monitor, so you can hit start and it'll start gathering the data on your heart rate. Not sure how accurate it is, but it's pretty fun to play with. I haven't played with it all that much. It'll get, okay, see, there it is. You can see it says that I'm at 87, and if you leave it on, if I go back to watch face, digital, and you can see that the digital actually has the heart rate there down in the corner, so it keeps track of that, and then there's your step counter. On the PineWiki, they actually have a halfway guide on how to make your own watch faces. And basically, it's like just copy another watch face and then go from there. So that, but the heart heart rate monitor basically is on as long as you leave the heart rate monitor reading. So if I turn it off, you can see that it basically turns gray. So it's not reading anything anymore. You can see that we're connected by Bluetooth too, based on that up in the corner. Now I can remove this. So it's been raining a little bit today, so I've actually been able to have this out in the rain, and it has held up for the like few or so minutes that I've had it out there. But I've already got some like small scratches on the screen surface, so hopefully we can get replacement screens on the Pine Store soon. But let's see, let's go back into settings. So if we go and look at battery, so it's at 68%. So the battery life is projected to be 5 to 7 days. What I find interesting is for about the first day that I had it on full brightness. I had the notification vibrate on. And basically overnight, basically through my 8 hours, whatever, of sleep, it had drained about 20% or so of the battery. So if you've got full bright on, you get plenty of notifications during the night, because what happens when you get a notification, like a message or something, so it'll pull the notifications for messages, not like calendar notifications. So like if you're running Element, if you've got Discord that pushes messages and you've got SMS coming in a lot, then the screen's going to turn on all the time. So if you so I can actually run a test notification. So I've had it connected to Gadget Bridge on my phone for the most part. But you can connect it to Siglo on desktop, and I can demonstrate that. And come on, focus. You can, if I can get it to show, I've got a very, very nice percentage showing in it. Battery percentage. Very, very nice. But if I go to, so I can go into debug to kind of demonstrate it. And so if I go send, you can see that it sends a test, and this is what it does on every message that you get, is it'll turn on and then it'll stay on for a few seconds, however long your timeout is, and then turn off. So basically at full bright with the vibration on, so if I turn, so by turning on the notification there, you basically turn on vibrate, and so it'll vibrate every time you get one. Not sure. Oh, it's not going to pick up on the mic, but you can also test to see what an incoming call looks like, and it's not bad. It'll show the contact name when you have it available. Most of the calls that I've got when I've had it paired have not been in my contacts, so, you know. So there's nothing for an outgoing call, or starting a call, or ending a call. That's basically most of it. So you've basically got a number of notification options that you can check with Gadget Bridge for debugging. But it's pretty basic so far, and being as the firmware's open source, you can mess with it, which is why they also have that guide for watch faces. So if we go, I'm going to turn that off. We're going to, 24 hours is a supreme time format that you should use. So Pinetime style, this is a watch face introduced in 1.3.0. So what it is it actually resembles the Pebble watch face. So you've got a watch face, kind of like what you'd have on some of your Samsung clock options. And then you've got, down here is basically your step count gold dial. Shows you how close you are to it. Then you've got, come on, buddy. You've got, well, your calendar here, and then your battery and Bluetooth indicator there. So you can have your date and whatever there. It doesn't show the full thing like on some of the others. But there are some changes that I would make myself that I probably will down the road. But I've mostly been using the digital face for the most part. I'd like to see more functionality on something like the analog, but that's something I can do myself later on once I dig into the firmware. You can set a wake up standard, so if you raise it up, it'll turn on. If you double tap the screen, it'll turn on, or single tap. You can pick multiple of those as well. So I can go boom, boom, and have two of those. or none of those. So it forces me to press the side key when I want to turn the screen on. This is your display timeout. Default is 15 seconds. So when you first get it, it'll be set to 15 seconds. You can set it to really short or really long. It just depends. One annoying thing that I found with this is that if you get a notification, you're messing around in the menu here, the notification will just like screw you up and bring you to the notification screen. So let's say, for example, I'm sitting here and I'm messing around with it, and then where's my debug? I'm sitting here like trying to decide on a watch face to pick, and then all of a sudden I get a notification. Then it just takes precedent, and then it takes you back to the watch face. So you have to go back through again. You go through here, you go through there, you gotta go through watch face, and then you can finally click it unless another notification comes through just barely before you're able to tap it, or it registers that you tapped it. So that's one annoyance that I noticed, but I guess it's a small thing, and it might just be me, because like so the only basically 2 or 3 applications I have that push message notifications are Facebook Lite Messenger, because that's where I've got family that does messaging, and then Element, which is not as active as Discord, but at the same time can be somewhat annoying. Sometimes it just hits that spot where it just pops a lot through. And then, of course, text messages. So you can filter it out through your notifications on the phone, but at the same time, it'll come through here. And so when you're messing with the notifications, all you got to do is drop down like this, and it's got a max of 5 notifications in the drawer here, basically, that you can flip through. After it goes beyond 5, the oldest one in that 5 gets dropped. So it just kind of pushes it up and down. And then your applications are basically, you've got stopwatch, you've got timer, you've got music player. So this doesn't work with everything. So Audible, for example, works through its own little special API, so it doesn't go through the music API. But if you're like listening to something in your browser, so if you're got a PeerTube video going in your browser of choice, or in a standalone web app that you set up through like something like Phoenix or Firefox or Chrome or whatever, you can control the playback with this, and it will show some of the information on the screen here. So if I pull up, let's go with, where is my music app? TTT. We could go with Shadow Warrior, but that's not near, well, yeah. So you can see that it shows the track information there. Basically, all it shows is the artist, come on, and the album name. Let me turn the timeout to a better, 30 seconds. So one thing I am not quite sure of is like the max number of items you can have in one of the settings menus, because if they don't have a way to scroll it, then that will make it very difficult to have like more customized watch faces. So you can see it's got its nice little animation there showing you that it's playing, but I can sit here and I can pause, I can play, I can go to the next one. Come on. I can tell it to go to the next one. And then skip to the next one or go back. I've got like 5 different music apps, sadly, each one's set to a different thing and on a different album. So, but they're all pretty small because that's just the way life is. But let me close that out and I will drop that. Hopefully I didn't get too much in there that it's going to scream at me. YouTube has had a habit of tapping some of these older game soundtracks as like music that it isn't even remotely. So like some of Jeremy Soul's older tracks, it's like some other content ID thing comes in and like, oh, that's my song. It's like, wait, no, it's not. But the dispute gets cleared up pretty well when I do dispute it. Because it's like, oh, yeah, that isn't ours. That's something else. So, one interesting thing is they included a paint app on it. I mean, I'd like to know how to change the color, but at the same time, that's pretty funny. And then you basically got your Pong type game. Did you really just... I guess it sometimes does this too. Hopefully it doesn't boot loop. Okay. So one thing you will notice is that in order to set the time for the first time, you will have to connect it to a device, and it does wipe your step counter when it has to reset like that, which is sad. It does have that 2048 game, so you can sit there and swipe stuff around and do that jazz. You've got the accelerometer metrics that you can play around with. So play funny graph game, basically. And then this is actually a metronome, which I found pretty cool. So we can turn it all the way down to 80 beats per minute. Or we can go, well, we'll actually do it at 140. And so this button down here is basically gives you your like measure timing. So it's got a 4 beat measure timing. So basically what it'll do is at the start of the measure, depending on what you're timing, whether it's like 6/8, 4/4, what have you, it'll increase the vibrate of one of them to denote that, hey, this is the beginning of the next measure on your musical score. You can set that. It's got, let's see, got 5, it's got 2, so it goes all the way down to 1, so you could have all of them in tenths. You've got 5, 7, 8, 9, so it looks like it goes up to 9, which is an interesting choice. So we'll stick it at the default 4. So I guess you have to have your vibrate on for it to work, but basically it will vibrate each beat rather than like make a sound, because it doesn't seem to have any speaker in it to make a sound. But so if we switch over, hopefully this works. Okay, so we can switch over to Siglo, and then if we disconnect, so you can see that once I've disconnected, oh, the Bluetooth icon disappears, but it still keeps the time, so it'll still keep track of that. I have run into some issues with trying to reconnect to it when you're out of range, so it's kind of interesting. I've had to turn the screen on and then quickly enough like tell it to reconnect, and it's been kind of marginal whether that works. So if we try and search for it, we can see that our Pinetime has popped up on the computer. So for the most part, what it looks like is Siglo is mostly for firmware updates. So it doesn't really do that much. It does basically shows us the same stuff that Gadget Bridge shows us. So it's, yeah. So it looks like it does manage to check the GitHub for updates. So Siglo does make it somewhat easier to update for you. So it'll download and then update the firmware and manage it for you. Unlike Gadget Bridge, which you have to do that manually. So I may be updating my firmware from there. One interesting thing is when you update your firmware, what you have to do in order to keep that firmware change is you have to come into the firmware screen, and a thing will pop. This screen will look different, and it'll give you like unvalidated basically, and you can either, it'll have a red reset button here and a green validate button here, and in order to basically like keep the change of firmware, you have to hit validate. Otherwise, you can reset to an older version of the firmware if that doesn't work out for you. And if you hard reset it, it will revert back to the old firmware as well. So in essence, in order to, it's like keeping resolution changes on most applications. Do you want to do this? Okay, don't. I haven't played with Wasp OS yet. I've kind of looked at it because it might be a bit easier to play with the stuff though. But yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, I will see where this goes from here, though. It'll be pretty fun to see what happens. And if this was helpful or whatever to you, if you've been looking at an option for a smartwatch or something, a Pinetime is a good option. It doesn't have a lot of things right now, but being as the firmware's open source, it shouldn't be that difficult to implement other APIs and stuff for notifications into it, or to create a separate drawer. They have implemented some things that will allow for fonts, different fonts to be stored on it, so it's got like a small file system on it for storing certain data and stuff that they're starting to implement, so that'll be exciting. Discord, Guilded, XMPP, all of that stuff will be in the description. And I will figure out what else to do with this thing. It's been kind of interesting messing around with it so far. So I will see you all later.